Hey guys, we're here today with our third installment of the Bata rhythm ChachaElekefuñ, and today I'm going to be doing it playing an adaption on 3 conga drums. So this lesson I hope will be very useful for congueros, for salseros, for anyone that plays the conga drums but wants to add more of an Afro-folkloric feel into their playing. Now, playing the 3 conga drums, we've gotten pretty far away from the traditional version of the way that we would play this rhythm. And the further we get away from the tradition, the more we've kind of reduced the equation. Where once we needed 3 pairs of hands and had 6 drum heads. Then we put the 3 batas on the stand. We have 6 drum heads but only 2 hands. And now we're down to 2 hands and 3 drum heads. So again, this idea of what we leave out is going to sort of compound as we go along with these lessons. Approaching the adaption of folkloric rhythms on other instruments, there's a few different ways to start, but one of the main things I look at is, well, what can I physically get in there? So if we start at the very beginning of this rhythm, by now you guys should be very familiar with the call into the rhythm, and we'll just kind of start with those building blocks, working our way from the bottom up. So if we start with the okonkolo pattern, the old school traditional okonkolo pattern for ChachaElekefuñ is going to sound like this. Okay, and I can play that pretty easily with my left hand here on the quinto. On the conga drum, now I can start to bring in the pattern that would be played by the itotele. Traditionally, that would sound like this. But now I need to be able to do it with one hand. So if I add that in there, now I'm playing. Okay, that movement is quite difficult for me, going from the open slap to a muffle slap. So depending on the speed at which I'm playing, or again, if I'm playing in a style that's maybe more funky or rock oriented, and I don't need to hint so much at the tradition, I might choose to play that just open slap, open slap. Okay, but if I can get the muffle in there, then I certainly will try. And I'll add those 2 rhythms together, starting with the okonkolo pattern and adding in the notes of the itotele. Okay, that's a really cool independence exercise as well as a pretty great groove. Now the last thing that I need to add in are the notes of the iya. And as you'll notice, I can't quite get to them all, but certainly the low note on beat 1 I can try to add in there to give me more of the flow and the impression of this rhythm of ChachaElekefuñ. So now I'm going to build these up. The notes of the okonkolo, adding in the notes of the itotele, and finally the single note that I can add in with the iya. And it should sound something like this. Now, that's a pretty cool groove. It's a very neat independence idea to work on that so that I can be able to play all of those different rhythms with my hands. However, there is quite a bit missing. You'll notice that signature slap of the iya on beat 3. I don't have anywhere in the pattern. And the other thing that I notice about this rhythm is that I've kind of run out of space, run out of headroom. My hands are playing all that they can play. There's not much room in there for improvisation or to bring in other elements of the rhythm. So this is a really cool groove. It's something that I might use in, say, like an 8-bar breakdown or a drum feature of a song, but it's not particularly a pattern that I would want to use for the duration of a song or say for an entire dance class, because it takes a lot of endurance just to play that rhythm for a long period of time. So now I start to look for ways that I can free this rhythm up. And one of the first things that I do is I start to change this this very constant pattern in the left hand to a more improvisatory pattern, sort of hinting at the floreos that would be played by the okonkolo, but not playing any particular pattern or version of that. So the one adaptation that I've come up with that I use a lot for this sounds something like this, and I'll play it for you very slowly. Okay, let me break that down for you a little bit. Again, I'm sort of rooting this rhythm in the pattern that would be played by the totele. So with my right and left hand, I'm thinking about this pattern. Okay, and with my left hand, I kind of play a series of notes, a slap, and then two opens, but alternating the rhythm in the way that it would be used in the left hand of the totele. So if I play just that, it should sound like this. Okay, now it's very easily for me to add in that single note of the iya here on the lowest drum, and that completes the whole rhythm. We're still getting that impression of ChachaElekefuñ, but now you can see I'm starting to play much more hand to hand, and just like it did with the 3 Bata drums on the stand, that's going to open up a lot more possibilities for me to move around, to incorporate some of the improvisational things that would be happening with the iya and with the totele. So again, in this lesson, I'm not going to spend oodles of time talking about improvisations that can be played, but there's many different versions of this, and I'll play some common improvisations that I like to use within this sort of style. And it'll sound something like this. Now, I've had many influences while I developed these sort of patterns, so I in no way want to pretend that all of these adaptations are uniquely my own. I've listened to many different drummers, many different recordings of people that have played rhythms like this. I've heard versions done by Michael Spyro and the gentleman from Percussion Life, whose name is escaping me right now. But you can check out lots of different versions of this online and on YouTube, and I've borrowed from a lot of these. When I was in music school, my arranging teacher at the time used to tell us that, well, good composers borrow and great composers steal. So I've stolen a lot of ideas, a lot of licks that I've heard played from other drummers, and I try to bring them together to create something that's uniquely my own. One of the things that I heard done by great, very famous drummer and percussionist Michael Spyro is to get that actual okonkolo of floreo, he would add some double notes on the itotele. His pattern sounded something like this. That's a great version of this pattern, so I definitely wanted to share that with you. It's a very valid choice for a way to play these rhythms. The way that I do it is a little bit different, and it's borrowed from the way that I play the rhythm on the 3 batas. And again, I'll play this for you slowly and clearly so that you can hear it. Now my left hand is actually playing the floreo improvisation that would be played on the okonkolo, and again, playing hand to hand, that leaves me a lot of room for improvisations. Another very quick thing that I want to talk about is that feeling that happens within Afro-Cuban music. And to me, it's always this clash of the feeling of 2 and 3. Michael Spyro, who I spoke of before, would describe this as the feeling of fix, because it's never quite in 4 and it's never quite in 6. And that sort of tension that's created by the two of those happening at the same time is something to me that really gives a lot of feeling in Afro-Cuban music. So there's different ways to interpret the itotole pattern that's played. The most traditional version would sound like this. And I'm going to play a little time on the bongo bell just to give that some context so you can hear real clearly where the beats are. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now drummers from the province of Matanzas, where primarily my teachers are based, with ChachaElekefuñ they tend to hint more at a 6 or a 12/8 kind of pattern. So they'll alter that pattern slightly by adding an additional slap in the left hand, and moreover they're changing the feeling of the pattern to give more of that impression of a 12/8 happening. So that would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that gives it more of a rolling triplet kind of feel. Now, either one of those is a totally acceptable way to play. So in a very straight 4, or more of a 12/8 kind of pattern. But what I really like to do this pattern is to sort of push and pull between them. So it's very hard to do this without actually speeding up or slowing down. So while you're practicing, certainly in the early days of your practice, use a metronome, play with other people, something that's going to kind of keep you honest. But a really good exercise is just, I try to play, say, maybe 4 bars in a straight 4 feel, and then I'll play 4 bars in more of a 12. And I try to do this again with a very clean, consistent tempo. And that would sound something like this. As we get really comfortable shifting between those two time feels, we can start to shorten that phrase. So I could do every 2 bars, I could do every 1 bar, and then I can actually start to change within the beats. Say play maybe 2 beats in a 4, 2 beats in a more of a 12 style, and that really adds a lot of tension into the music and gives it this sort of elastic sort of feeling that is very characteristic of Afro-Cuban music. So just a very quick example of how that would sound is something like this. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this lesson on the rhythm ChachaElekefuñ played on 3 conga drums. As always, I hope you'll stay tuned with us as we come in next week. I'm going to be doing a lesson for this very modern instrument of the drum set and showing some versions and adaptions that we can play for this rhythm of ChachaElekefuñ on the drum set, but in more of, say, maybe a songo, timba, funky sort of style. So I hope you guys will stay tuned for that, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.